everyone. My name is Jodi Switzer. I'm the Water Programs Director with the Farm Bureau of Ventura County. And today I'm going to be providing a very high-level overview of the Conditional Ag Waiver Program, including how water quality runoff or discharge from agricultural operations is regulated, the pollutants of concern that can be discharged from those agricultural operations, and what Ventura County growers need to do to comply. And this brief presentation is by no means intended to give you a detailed overview of the Conditional Ag Waiver or VCAL programs, but it should provide an introductory framework for those who are less familiar with this regulatory program and what we at the Farm Bureau do to assist growers. So first, I'm going to start off with the who. Who regulates water quality? And there's actually a hierarchy of agencies who share responsibility for establishing water quality standards and the regulatory programs that implement those standards. So at the federal level, you have the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, who sets the overarching rules and minimum water quality standards that apply to all states throughout the country. And each state can then adopt their own water quality protections that go above and beyond what's established at the federal level. So at our state level, we have the California EPA and the State Water Resources Control Board. And they establish the state-specific minimum standards and programs that implement and expand on the EPA's federal requirements. Then one level below that are the 9 regional water quality control boards. And this is kind of a small map of California here, but I wanted to point out the region in which Ventura County is located. And that's this purple region down here, which includes Ventura County to the west and Los Angeles County to the east, all within the same region, which is called the Los Angeles region, or Region 4. And each regional board is responsible for implementing the regulatory programs that enforce these standards at the regional level. And this is done primarily by regulating various categories of discharges to ensure that the water in our creeks, rivers, ocean, and even groundwater basins are being protected. So I said regulating discharge. So first, what are discharges? Discharge is any flow of stormwater or non-stormwater that has the potential to carry pollutants into nearby surface water bodies like creeks, rivers, or the ocean, or down into groundwater. And when we say stormwater discharge, we mean any flow that is generated from rainfall. And non-stormwater discharge is an all-encompassing term for flows that occur during dry weather. And as is shown in this image here, there are many different land use types that discharge into a watershed, and this includes municipal sources, which would cover our residential and urban land uses, treated wastewater, industrial and construction activities, agricultural sources, and naturally existing sources. And each of these various discharge categories have the potential to impact water quality. So when we're talking about agricultural discharges specifically, the types of pollutants that the Regional Water Board is most focused on include fertilizers, pesticides, which includes both legacy pesticides like DDT compounds and toxaphene, as well as currently used pesticides, sediment, trash, bacteria. All of these pollutants can be carried from an agricultural field in stormwater or in irrigation runoff that then flows to a nearby creek, river, or the ocean, or in irrigation leaching that can carry certain water-soluble pollutants as the water infiltrates down into the underlying groundwater aquifer. So now that we know what agricultural discharges are, how are they regulated? The Regional Water Board has a standalone, separate regulatory program that's specific to agricultural discharges, just like they have for some of the other types of land use discharges that I mentioned earlier. And so agricultural discharges are regulated under the Conditional Waiver of Waste Discharge Requirements from Irrigated Lands, also known as the Conditional Waiver, or the Ag Waiver, or the Conditional Ag Waiver. And this can be a little confusing because the term waiver sounds like an exemption from having to do or comply with something, when in actuality, the waiver component has to do with how you file for coverage under the regulatory program. And the conditional aspect, the conditions, establishes the requirements of that regulatory program itself. So don't let the name fool you. It's unfortunately not a waiver or exemption from any substantive requirement. And similar to regulatory programs that are implemented by the other regional water boards throughout the state, the conditional ag waiver applies to all irrigated agriculture that is sold commercially, and it allows for two paths of compliance, either as an individual, in which case everything that I talk about from this point forward would be handled by the individual landowner or grower themselves, or the landowner or grower can comply by joining a third-party coalition that assists with compliance by implementing a water quality monitoring and reporting plan on those enrolled grower or landowner's behalf. And for Ventura County, the third-party coalition is called the Ventura County Agricultural Irrigated Lands Group, or VCALG, and is administered by the Farm Bureau of Ventura County. And the conditional waiver itself is a regulatory order that specifies the things that growers and their coalitions must do to protect surface water and groundwater quality. And because this conditional ag waiver order is specific to the Los Angeles region, this means that the requirements that apply to Ventura County growers will be slightly different from growers who operate in other regions, even though there are many similar components that are dictated by the State Water Board. And the last thing I'll mention here is that the conditional ag waiver is renewed every 5 years, and that provides an opportunity to evaluate the progress that's been made over that 5-year term to see what more needs to be done and to achieve those water quality standards, and then revise as necessary. And generally, this means that each subsequent term of the conditional ag waiver builds and expands on the last and creates the robust regulatory program that we have today. So here's a very high-level overview of the conditional ag waiver requirements. The conditional ag waiver establishes water quality standards that agricultural dischargers must meet. It requires a water quality sampling program to evaluate compliance with those standards. It requires extensive reporting, including an annual compliance report, a water quality management plan that has to be revised and resubmitted for approval every 1.5 years, annual groundwater nitrate trends tracking reports, and special studies when they're required. And lastly, but most importantly, the conditional waiver outlines the actions that landowners and growers must take when a water quality standard is exceeded in their area. So what does this mean for growers? First, any landowner or grower who chooses to comply through VCALG needs to enroll in the program and then participate. And a quick note that I wanted to make is that while enrollment in VCALG is optional, compliance with the conditional ag waiver is mandated by state law, and the regional water board can issue violations and fines for failure to comply. So if a landowner or grower chooses not to enroll in VCALG, then their only other option for compliance is as an individual. And the cost and burden of doing so is significant enough that there are no growers or landowners in Ventura or Los Angeles County who have chosen this route. So once a grower has enrolled in VCALG, participation in the program entails attending 2 hours per year of VCALG continuing education units, or CEUs, submitting a best management practice, or BMP, survey when it's required, which is about every 1.5 years, implementing additional or expanded BMPs on the farm as needed, and staying up to date with VCALG outreach, which includes periodic e-newsletters announcing education events, providing regulatory updates, or informing enrolled members about VCALG activities and important program information. Some of this information can also be found on our website, but the e-newsletter is the primary communication channel for the program. So the most important information source that I want growers to know about is the VCALG responsibility area, or RA, compliance summary handouts. And this map here shows how Ventura County has been broken up into 20 distinct responsibility areas, each of which is assigned to a representative monitoring site that's sampled to determine if water quality in that responsibility area is meeting required standards. And the RA handouts themselves, they detail water quality issues that are being seen at each of those monitoring sites. So these are the water quality issues that the growers need to address. And it provides a list of required and recommended BMPs that could then address those water quality issues. It also provides a compliance checklist. So each enrolled VCALG member can ensure that they're maintaining the compliance documentation required by the regional board. And then lastly, I just want to note where you can find these RA compliance summary handouts, and that is on the Farm Bureau's website. So www.farmbureauvc.com. And then you would just navigate over to the VCALG water quality webpage. You'll see a listing of links to download each of the 20 RA compliance summary handouts. And if you're not sure exactly which RA you're located in, there's also a listing of all enrolled parcels. So parcels that are enrolled in the VCALG program, and then the RA that they're assigned to. So that'll tell you for your specific parcel, which RA that's located in. So here's a quick glimpse of what these RA compliance summary handouts look like, so you know what to look for. First, you'll want to select the RA handout that's specific to the RA in which you grow. So this particular RA handout is for RA number 2, which is the Lower Cayugas Creek responsibility area. And that's kind of the area a little bit south of the city of Camarillo. And on this first page, there are 2 things that I wanted to point out. So first is a listing of water quality issues specific to this RA. And these are the pollutant categories that are currently exceeding water quality standards and need to be addressed through new or increased BMP implementation. And next is the compliance document checklist. This lists all of the information and documentation that the Regional Water Board requires each enrolled member to maintain. And some of this information is fulfilled just by having this handout itself. And then there are check boxes that are provided for the rest, so that you can make sure that you account for everything that's required. And the second page, and sometimes the third page, depending on the RA, this lists the BMPs that are required, no matter what, for all growers within this responsibility area. And that's always the first line here. And then below that is a listing of recommended BMP options to address all of the water quality issues that are listed on that previous page. And the reason these are BMP options is because the regional board recognizes that there isn't one solution or one fit that would work for everyone. Each field, each type of growing operation is different, and some of these options might not even apply. And if that's the case, that's fine. You just move on down the list and you see what might apply to your field or your operation and what's feasible to implement. And some of the most effective BMP recommendations involve irrigation management. And this is because efficiently managing irrigation and preventing dry weather runoff is overall the most effective thing that a grower can do to prevent the discharge of pollutants. So this would include things like conversion to drip or micro sprinkler systems to efficiently apply irrigation water, using automated irrigation controllers or weather systems to determine when to irrigate, using soil moisture sensors to reduce irrigation leaching below the root zone. And then there are also some nitrogen management tools, such as utilizing the nitrate quick test strips, which can help you determine how much nitrogen you have in your irrigation water and your soil, as well as what's leaving your field in irrigation tailwater. And then groundwater cover BMPs, such as cover cropping, that can control sediment transport and erosion while also improving soil health. And those were just a few examples, but each of these RA handouts has a link to more information on each of the BMPs listed. And if that list of recommended BMP options is a little daunting and you don't know where to start, then some of the assistance programs offered by local partners might be of interest to you. And there are various programs that are offered by the USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service, or NRCS, the Ventura County Resource Conservation District, so RCD, the University of California Cooperative Extension, or CDFA Fertilizer Research and Education Program that can all provide BMP selection and implementation assistance, and even funding and cost share opportunities in many cases. And VCALD can help refer interested growers to the contacts for each of these agencies and their programs. And there's also a wide variety of education workshops throughout the year to give VCALD members an opportunity to get those required 2 hours of CEUs. The workshops cover a lot of the content that I've talked about in this talk so far, but in much more detail. Talk more about how to select the appropriate BMPs, provide technical information and recent research finding, showcase BMP demonstration projects through field tours, and provide training and certification opportunities for developing nitrogen management plans for your operation. So that was a very quick overview of the conditional ag waiver and the VCALD program. If there are any questions about the material that I've covered during this talk, I'm always open for questions, and my email is here on the screen, Jodi, Jodi, @farmbureauvc.com. Thanks so much.